Day. Happy to welcome our next guest in this morning. He is Colonel Jeremy Parker, Director of Military Support with the Mississippi National Guard. Colonel Parker, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Richard.
Really appreciate some of your time. This has been it's been a busy stretch for the Mississippi National Guard units in other states as well. And it's come in the wake of a couple of hurricanes that have devastated parts of the Southeast. Kind of bring us up to speed on what's been going with the Mississippi National Guard, where your men and women have been, and what those responsibilities have been like.
Well, so as you know, Richard, it's been a pretty busy year this year with 5 hurricanes actually in the Gulf. Thankfully, we have not had significant impacts to Mississippi. I know Hurricane Francine back in September, we had some damage to South Mississippi, but most importantly, we've seen Hurricane Helene and then Milton make landfall, and particularly with Hurricane Helene has done, extensive damage throughout the Southeast. So out ahead of Hurricane Helene, Florida asked us to augment their aviation task force, so we did send 18 maintenance and air crew to Florida to help with that. So it was two Blackhawks, 2 HH-60 Blackhawks that have a medevac configuration to do search and rescue, as well as a CH-47 Chinook.
Those are that's some heavy duty stuff that Florida asked for and that we were able to provide. What is what's the inventory like of helicopter capability with the National Guard here in Mississippi?
So we have a lot of aviation capability in the state. We have a good number of Blackhawk helicopters. We have the CH-47 Chinook helicopters based out of Meridian. We also have LUH-72s in Tupelo. And then we also have Apache helicopters. Of those are not used for domestic operations.
Gotcha. In terms of cooperation, when you go in, obviously the National Guard is used to cooperating with Guard units from other states if there's a deployment or for whatever. But what is that like? You're not necessarily dealing with all of the people that you've trained with, all the people that you've worked with on a daily basis in terms of integration with other states' Guard units or people that are working on these projects?
Well, sure. Well, it really starts with we all coordinate with each other out of, generally early in the year. It depends every year, what you plan for your worst disaster in that particular year based off who you have mobilized. So we all in the FEMA Region 4, which is the Southeast United States, we coordinate very closely each year of what we may need at a given point in time. And then it really comes down to your state leadership being ready to help each other. So obviously us with Governor Reeves, our Adjutant General, Major General Bobby Ginn, and then Director Stephen McCraney at MEMA, we're always wanting to support other states. So, and when you support another state, you do it through a Emergency Management Assistance Compact, and that is processed through our Emergency Management Agency, MEMA, through the state that you're supporting. So you do a lot of planning ahead of time on the front end, so when another state needs help, you can execute pretty quickly.
Well, and we talked with Stephen about some of the coordination of MEMA resources working in conjunction with FEMA, working in conjunction with other states. And, he spoke glowingly about the National Guard. And he said, look, it ultimately comes from the governor. He says, we're going to help. Now you go coordinate it. And then I guess his coordination then works with leadership for the Guard in Mississippi and other states, right?
That's exactly right. That's how it works. And when we send a unit to another state, they generally are integrated into that state's operation. So once they get there, they're working for that state, however that state needs them to assist.
Do you know what the time frame is going to be when you go into a request for help like that?
You really don't. Usually we'll use an estimate of about 2 weeks. So that's kind of what we plan on. And then if it ends up ending early, that's fine. We bring them back early. I did fail to mention we also sent an engineer team, a debris clearing team to South Carolina in response to the damage from Hurricane Helene in South Carolina. There just were lots of trees covering roadways in South Carolina, so that team went in, did debris clearance around the Greenville, South Carolina area, and they were from the 186 Civil Engineering Squadron in Meridian, Mississippi.
So they go in just like a Samaritan's Purse team would. They've got chainsaws, they've got heavy machinery. They're going in, cleaning it, getting that out of the way, trying to get it back operable as quickly as possible.
That's exactly right. Just went in, worked for the local emergency manager in the affected area, and they told them, hey, go clear these roads, and that's what they did.
Visiting with Colonel Jeremy Parker. He's Director of Military Support with the Mississippi National Guard. Yeah, the uniqueness of the National Guard is so fascinating to me. You think about the other branches of the military where it's, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and they work within their structure. And yet the National Guard, almost like a Swiss Army knife, right? I mean, if local disaster relief or stateside disaster relief is needed, you can be deployed. If there is a deployment to Afghanistan or Iraq or somewhere else in the Middle East, you can be brought in as a support role, an attachment. There's really a lot of responsibility and kind of a lot of diversity of assignment that exists.
So absolutely. I believe, Richard, the National Guard is one of the most valuable assets to our nation. I mean, you have members of the Army and Air Force that train for that mobilization, that overseas mission, which they do on a recurring basis. And, I mean, everybody's more than capable of falling in with the Army or Air Force and doing your military job. But that military training also lends itself when you have a disaster or crisis stateside. You can turn around and use those same skill sets to help the state, and you're doing that under the direction of the governor of that state.
Colonel Parker, what do you see as the health of the National Guard at this point, specifically in Mississippi, in terms of numbers, historically versus where we are right now? What are the needs that exist?
So we're healthy. Mississippi's very fortunate to have a very large National Guard. We have about a 12,000 membership. That's a tremendous footprint of the National Guard. Everybody, nationwide across all components is recruiting is a challenge, but you continue to work on that. And for the most part, we keep our strength. It stays really high. We have great morale, and especially like what we're talking about today, when you can put soldiers or airmen out there helping citizens of the United States, there's nothing that they like doing more and helps us retain them in the National Guard.
I guess it's been a really long time since I've seen the commercials, but I remember them from a kid when, it was, 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year was kind of talk about the requirements. But if there's somebody that's considering that, whether they are already of working age or maybe they're graduating high school or graduating college and, want a civilian career but also want to serve, what is that process for somebody that is interested in learning more or joining the National Guard?
The best way is to reach out to a recruiter, and they can kind of give you the benefits, the things you need to do, the things that are maybe a challenge to enlisting. But if you'll talk to anybody like me that's been in the National Guard for a pretty good bit of time, everybody's going to tell you the same thing. It's the best decision you ever make. So it really is very fulfilling. To your point, a lot of people are. They have a civilian career. They go to college. They do all the things that normal folks do, but they also spend time training to be in the military. And you're in the military, so a lot of benefits go along with that. A lot of things that are very helpful to you, especially working your way through school and then even after school. So there's like I said, you talk to anybody that's been in for a long time, they're going to tell you, hey, this is the best thing I've ever did. And you'll build skill sets that help you in your civilian career.
Colonel Jeremy Parker, Director of Military Support with the Mississippi National Guard. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing with us this morning, and look forward to catching up with you down the line.
All right. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it.
This is the Gallo Radio Show on SuperTalk Mississippi. We've got more coming up, including a conversation at 8:37, about 20 minutes from right now, with Riley Gaines, All-American champion swimmer. She's a host on Outkick and is the director at the Riley Gaines Center at the Leadership Institute. She's making a tour of college campuses this fall. Ole Miss is included on that tour. We will talk with her about all that is going on and what's up with Title IX as it pertains to protecting women in sports. We're back with you right after this.